My name is Gabriela Giron, and I'm a student here at the Honors College in Resort Kingwood. And I first would like to ask a question. How many of you guys have ever seen a monarch butterfly in real life around here? Or at least know what monarch butterflies are? Okay, well, monarch butterflies, despite not very many people knowing them here, are one of the most known and loved insects all around the world, especially in North America. And they are one of the most easily distinguishable because of their bright patterns, their bright orange colors, and they are also very interesting to study because of their very intriguing migration patterns throughout North America. However, I would like to talk about a topic that is not very widely known, which is the fact that the monarch butterflies are at risk of being extinct. As a matter of fact, recently, earlier this year, they were declared endangered by the International Union for Conservation Nature. And this could be due to many different factors, and it intrigued me because not many people know about how drastic this decline really is. So this led me to my research question, which is, how do increases in human activity influence the migration patterns of monarch butterflies? So as we know, humans play a super big role in not only helping the environment, but most importantly, harming the environment because of how much pollution we induce, how many trees we cut down every year for our own usage, and this harms the monarch butterfly. In order to answer my question, I have to first explain that there are two different kinds of migratory monarch butterflies. We have the eastern population, which is the larger population of the two, and we have the western population. The eastern population, they overwinter in central Mexico, and they breed around the eastern part of the Rocky Mountains. And the western population is the smaller population of the two, which overwinters around coastal California in those areas, and they breed west of the Rocky Mountains. So the larger of the two populations has decreased by 84%. In recent years, there's been an 84% decline in the total population of monarch butterflies. And this may seem like a big number, especially because they are the bigger population of the two, but the smaller western population shows a more dramatic decrease with over 99.9% decline in their population around North America. And just to put it into perspective, I would like to show you guys two graphs. So first we have the western migratory population, which like I said is the smaller of the two, the one that has decreased by 99.9%. This graph shows initially in 1997, there were only about 100 sites monitored around coastal California, which is where they overwinter, and over 1 million butterflies were counted, they were studied in those areas. And as you can see in recent years, the amount of sites that have been monitored in search for these monarch butterflies has increased. There have been many more volunteers trying to find these monarch butterflies in their overwintering sites, and yet less than 200,000 have been found. As a matter of fact, as of 2020, there were less than 2,000 monarch butterflies counted altogether in these sites. And similarly, with the eastern migratory monarch population, which is the bigger of the two, shows a very similar decline. As in 1997, around 1996 to 1997, we can see that they have the highest population. And this shows the area that's covered by the monarch butterflies in their overwintering site in Mexico per hectare. And just to put it into perspective, each hectare is made up of 100 acres. So in 1997, there were almost 19 hectares covered by monarch butterflies, and in recent years, there has been less than 3 hectares being covered by these monarch butterflies. And although this is still a lot of hectares, it's 100 acres of land, this is a very dramatic decrease for the monarch butterflies, and they are very near extinction. So there are many different factors, like I said, that can influence the decline of the monarch butterflies, but for my research, I focused on 2. Firstly, I focused on the loss of milkweed due to changes in farming practices. So firstly, I want to go into why milkweed is important for these butterflies. Milkweed is the host plant for these butterflies. They require it to lay their eggs on when they breed as well as this is the only plant that they will feed on. The larva they will feed on, it's the only plant that they use. And they also help to with pollination. And by changes in farming practices, I mean especially focus on genetically modified crops and the increased use of herbicides, which are used to kill unwanted weeds. And like I said, this is a weed, although it is not an invasive weed. Secondly, for my second factor, I focus on the loss of overwintering habitat due to deforestation. I primarily focus on their habitat in central Mexico because that is the larger of the two, and I focus primarily on the monarch butterfly biosphere reserve, which was implemented around 1980s in order to help preserve these monarch butterflies when they finally started being studied more. So for the milkweed abundance, this graph shows the relative abundance of milkweed decline as well as the abundance of monarch butterflies. And as you can see in this the green line, it shows the decrease of when the milkweed availability began decreasing, which happened around in the 1940s. And later on, about 10 years later, in 1955, we can see that there was a similar decrease in monarch butterflies. And then in this blue line, we can see that that blue line essentially shows when genetically modified crops and herbicides began to be more widely used around the nation. And as we can see after the introduction, the line just keeps decreasing, and as we saw now, the butterflies are almost extinct. So, as seen from the graph, milkweed is a very important factor when talking about why monarch butterflies are decreasing. And the second factor was the forest loss in the Mexican monarch butterfly reserve. So this graph shows us how many hectares have been lost due to illegal logging as well as climate-related factors. And as we can see, in 2007 to 2009, there were over 731 hectares lost of land, which if you multiply by 100, that's about 731,000 acres. And this is a lot. This is a lot of hectares covered. However, in recent years, we can see that this illegal logging has declined, and there has been less forest coverage lost for the monarch butterflies. However, it is important to note that for these monarch butterflies, even just one tree that is cut down is the difference between 1,000, a million monarch butterflies living or dying. They need these trees. The thickness of these trees and the thickness of this forest in the Mexican reserve keeps them safe from the harsh winter, as they cannot survive if their wings get wet, if they are in harsh weather. They are very susceptible to dying. So from my research, I concluded three different things. Firstly, that there were similar fluctuations in both populations. As we saw from the graphs, their numbers peaked around 1997. Both of them were at their highest. They were starting to be studied even more. And then later on in the following years, these monarch butterflies began decreasing at very drastic rates, and hence are now endangered. I also concluded that the loss of milkweed affects both populations of the monarch butterflies. Without this milkweed, neither the eastern population nor the western population can survive. So it is a highly important factor to consider when we want to talk about helping these monarch butterflies. And lastly, the loss of forage coverage in Mexico affects mainly the eastern population because it is the larger of the two, and the Mexican reserve primarily is there for the eastern population. That is the one that is affected the most. However, in coastal California, there has also been deforestation, and that is primarily for urban usage. With more people wanting to move over there, it's essentially they want to use more land to expand and build more cities. And this is taken away from the coverage that monarch butterflies have to overwinter during the harsh winter months. So, from my research, it was seen that logging and milkweed loss has not actually changed the monarch butterfly migration patterns. And we may think, well, that may be a good thing. It's not affecting them. It is affecting their numbers. But because their migration patterns have not changed, they are still susceptible to becoming extinct. Because as we know, adaptation is a very important factor when thriving. when species thrive, they need to adapt to the changing environment. But for these monarch butterflies, the changes in their environment has happened so quickly because of human activity that they simply have not had time to adapt to the changing environment, and they are in danger of becoming extinct. However, thankfully, though it has not been federally implemented, there are things that many different groups of people and organizations have been doing in order to help these monarch butterflies. One of them being the I-35 Habitat Corridor, which essentially is multiple organizations that have come together to plant milkweed along Interstate 35, which ranges from Texas all the way up to Minnesota. And this is, of course, helping primarily the eastern population, but the western population is also benefiting. But this is big groups, but what can we do? Things that are just as simple as finding out what milkweed plants are native to our environment and simply planting them in our own backyards or maybe around the areas around us. It can mean the difference between a monarch butterfly having something to feed on or dying. And these are my references.